Vacha yeshasha vidimutsrajya yajante shadayan vitaha tesham nishtatuka Krishna satvamaho rajastamaha.
Arjuna inquired, O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scripture but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance?
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Shri Vidabhavati Sada Dahina Satvavaja Satviki Rajasi Deva Tamasi Chatitam Shunu.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's fate can be of three kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now, hear about this.
Sattvanurupa Sya Shraddha Bhavati Bharata Shraddha Mayoyam Purusho Yoyashcharadasa Eva Saha.
O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired.
Yajante Sattvika Devan Yaksha Rakshamsi Rajasaha Pretan Bhutaya Pretan Bhuta Yajante Tamasa Janaha.
Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits.
Ashasra Vihitam Goram Tapyante Yatapojanaha Dambahankar Samyuktaha Kamaraga Bilanvitaha Karshayantaha Sharirastam Bhutagramam Chetasaha Mam Chaivantaha Sharirastam Tanvidya Suranishkayan.
Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body as well as the super soul dwelling within, are to be known as demons.
Aharastva api sarvasya trivida bhavati priyaha yagnastapastata danam tesham vedam imam shunu.
Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerities, and charity. Now, hear of the distinctions between them.
Ayuha sattva balo rogya sukha priti vivardanaha rasyaha snigdaha stiraridya aharaha sattvika priyaha.
Foods dear to those in mode of foods. I'm doing 17.77. It's 7, isn't it? 8. Foods dear to those in modes of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart.
Patva amala lavanati yushna tikshna ruksha vidahinaha ahara rajasashyashta tukasho ramaya pradaha.
Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease.
Yataya mam gata rasam puti paryushitam chayat uchishtam apicha medyam bojanam tamasa priyam.
Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in mode of darkness.
Afalakankshibiryagno vididishtoya ijjite yashtavyam eveti manaha samadaya sa eva samadaya sa satvika.
Of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the directions of Scripture as matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness.
Abhisandaya tu phalam dambartam apichayvayat ijjite bharata shrestha tam yagnam vidirajasam.
But the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride, O chief of the Bhartas, you should know to be in mode of passion.
Vidihin Vidihinam arishtanam mantrahinam dakshinam shradavirahitam yagnam tamasam parichakshite.
Any sacrifice performed without regard for the directions of Scripture, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting of Vedic hymns and remunerations to the priests, and without faith, is considered to be in the mode of ignorance.
Devadvija guru pragna pujanam shauchamarjavam brahmacharyam himsacha shariram tapa uchyate.
Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord. The Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence.
Anudvegakaram bhakyam satyam priya hitam chayat svadhyaya vyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate.
Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature.
Manaha prasadaha samyatvam manamatmavnigraha pavasamshuddhirityeta tapo manasmuchyate.
And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind.
Shradaya paraya taptam tapastatvividam narihi afalakankshabhyuktehi satikam parichakshate.
This threefold austerity, performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness.
Satkaramana pujartam tapodamben chayvayat kriyate tadeha proktam rajasam chalamadruvam.
Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent.
Mudagrahena manoya pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyostadanartam va tattamasamudaritam.
Penance performed out of foolishness, self-torture, or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
Datavyam eti yaddanam diyate nupakarine deshakale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam.
Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness.
Yatu pratyupakarartam phalam udishyava punaha diyate cha pariklishtam taddanam rajasam smritam.
The charity performed with the expectation of some return or with a desire for fruitive results or in a grudging mood is said to be charity in the mode of passion.
Adeshkale yaddanam apatrebyashcha diyate asatpritam avatnatam tattamasam daritam.
And charity performed at an impure place at an improper time to unworthy persons or without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
Om Tat Sat iti nidresho brahmanastri vidasmitaha brahmanastena vedescha yagnascha vihita pura.
From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme, absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme.
Tasmad Om iti daritya yagnadana tapaha kriyaha pravartante vidanoktaha satatam brahmavadinam.
Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performances of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations begin always with Om to attain the Supreme.
Tad iti anabhisandaya phalam yagna tapaha kriyaha Danakriya Vivedaha Kriyante Mokshapangshibihi.
Without desiring fruitive results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word Tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement.
Sadbhave Sadhubhave Cha Saritye Tat Prayujyate Prashaste Karmani Tata Satchabdaha Partayujyate Yagne Tapasidane Cha Stitihi Saditi Kakshite Karma Chaiva Tad Artiyam Sadityeva Dibiyate.
The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice and is indicated by the word Sat. The performer of such sacrifice is also called Sat, as are all works of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha.
Ashradaya hutam datam tapastaptam kritam chayat asadityuchite parta nashatat pratyeno iha.
Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pritha, is impermanent. It is called a Sat and is useless both in this life and the next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yash. Wonderful recitation. Thank you, Meenakshi Madhavi. Mataji, that was very, very nicely read by you. It's very nice. Thank you so much. So stop here. Let's see. Today we've got 95 devotees with us. Who we've got? Chandra Chaitanya Prabhu and Prema Vilas Mataji, Chandrika Mataji, Ishvari Sita Mataji, Jyotir, Kusha Mataji, Madhavi Devidasi, Meenakshi, Nitai Mata, Padma Malini Mataji, Palaksha Mataji, Paresh Prabhu, Pinky Mataji, Rajesh Prabhu, Rasalila Srimati Mataji, Rita Kumari Mataji, Sandeep Prabhu, Santosh Prabhu, or Santosh Mataji, sorry. S.K. Das, I'm not so sure Prabhu's name, Umi Mataji, Varsha Mataji, Vilashni Mataji, and Navneet, Anita Mataji, Bhagavati Mataji, Paraparya, Dev Kishan, Hema Mataji, Kanta, Sailesh Prabhu, Shabani and Girish Mataji and Prabhu, Supra Mataji, Usha, and Yashvini. Thank you very much for making time to attend today's session. It's wonderful to always be in your association.
Thank you, Prabhuji, very much.
So today, just bear with me while I get the right slide up. So while I'm doing that, who can just remind us, this chapter started with a question by Arjuna. And what was Arjuna's question?
Arjuna was saying that if someone worship without regarding the scriptures, so what about that? How he should be recognized?
Yes, yes, very much. Can you think of anyone who has faith, but they do not, who believes in God, but does not have faith in scriptures? Can you think of anyone who personally in your experience falls in that category?
Yes, Prabhuji, quite a few people.
Quite a few. I was thinking about it earlier today. Like even when I was brought up, my mother and father, they never really taught me much scripture. But they believed, and they believed in demigods, and they taught us to do all of the rituals. But they never taught or ever referred to Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or the Vedas or anything like that.
Yeah, it's my sorry. It's myself, Prabhuji, and I was used to worship Shivji Bhagwan, and my daughter told me about Hare Krishna because she used to live in London, and she saw Hare Krishna devotees, and she used to go to temple. And then she told me the Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I said, no, it's Shivaji, I worship Shivaji, if I leave Shivji and go to Krishna, and how is going to help, are we committing sin or something like that? So my daughter explained everything. She said, if you worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then everyone else should be worshipped, all the demigods. That's it. This is on my experience.
Yes. So what Arjuna is actually asking Arjuna is asking the question here. It's very relevant, isn't it? Because we can see that even our own journey in spiritual life, many of us were there. So Krishna's answer to Arjuna is very interesting. But let's just take one step back. Why do you think Arjuna is asking this question to Krishna?
Hare Krishna and
Hare Krishna Palike Mataji. Yes.
Hare Krishna on behalf of us, because he knows what the general mass does. So on behalf of us, he's asking Krishna. And so Krishna is the only person who can answer the right answer. He can give the right answer. So he had a complete 100% faith in Krishna. So he wanted us to know this knowledge. Otherwise, this wouldn't be here.
Yes. And actually, Arjuna's real intent, which is really interesting if you study this chapter, is really intent. And this is what's going to emerge from today's verse to the end of the chapter. Arjuna, because Krishna has been describing, he said, okay, you can recognize these people through different ways, by the food they eat, the charity they give, the austerities they perform, and so on. And then Krishna is talking about mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But the real intention of Arjuna by asking this question is not only how we recognize them, and this, as we spoke before, this is not only to see how these different people are in different modes. It's also for us to introspect, And this is the most, now we're going to come to the really interesting part of this chapter. And the interesting part is, how can those people that are caught up in this situation, that they do not have faith in scripture, well, they do not follow scripture, but they have faith and they are practicing, the eating food, and they're giving charity, and they're performing austerities in the different modes. how can these people advance?
Mm.
This is ultimately what we're coming to in this chapter. Because Krishna wants us not only to recognize other people, but recognize in our own self where we are. And in this verses 23, 24, 25, and to some respect, 27 and 6, 7 and 8, the Lord is now going to give particular focus on how such people can advance.
Yes.
So very, very interesting verses we're going to come to. So as I say, tighten your seatbelts and let's see where we go to. So, but we'll start off by saying the invocation. Om Jnana, no, sorry, Mangalacharana. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I guess you can see my screen, the divisions of faith.
No problem.
You can't see. Okay.
No.
It's a good thing I asked. Krishna. Okay, you should be able to see it now.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
All right, so today's verse, Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdeshu Brahmanas Trividha Shmitaha Brahmanas Tena Vedas Vedascha Yagnascha Vihita Pura. Synonyms word for word. Om, indication of the Supreme. Tat, that. Sat, eternal. Iti, thus. Nirdeshaha, indication. Brahmanaha, of the Supreme. Trividha, threefold. Smritaha, is considered. Brahmanaha, the Brahmanas. See, there's a distinction here. There's Brahmanaha and Brahmanaha. Here it is Brahman, the Supreme. And here it's Brahmanaha, the Brahmanas. Tena, with that. Veda, the Vedic literature. Cha, also. Yagna, sacrifice. Cha, also. Vihitaha, used. Pura, formally. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om, Tat, Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It has been explained that penance, sacrifice, charity, and foods are divided into three categories: the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But whether first class, second class, or third class, they are all conditioned by the material modes of nature. When they are aimed at the Supreme, Om Tat Sat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Eternal, they become means for spiritual elevation. In the scriptural injunctions, such an objective is indicated. These three words, Om Tat Sat, particularly indicate the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Vedic hymns, the word Om is always found. One who acts without following the regulations of the scriptures will not attain the absolute truth. He will get some temporary result, but not the ultimate end of life. The conclusion is that the performance of charity, sacrifice, and penance must be done in the mode of goodness. Performed in the mode of passion or ignorance, they are certainly inferior in quality. The three words Om Tat Sat are uttered in conjunction with the holy name of the Supreme Lord, Om Tat Vishnu. Whenever a Vedic hymn or the holy name of the Lord is uttered, Om is added. This is the indication of Vedic literature. These three words are taken from Vedic hymns. Om iti etad brahmano nadishtam nama indicates the first goal. Then Tattvam Asi, Chandogya Upanishad 687 indicates the second goal. And Sad Eva Somya, Chandogya Upanishad 621 indicates the third goal. Combined, they become Om Tat Sat. Formerly, when Brahma, the first created living entity, performed sacrifices, he indicated by these three words the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the same principle has always been followed by disciplic succession. So this hymn has great significance. Bhagavad Gita recommends, therefore, that any work done should be done for Om Tat Sat, or for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one performs penance, charity, and sacrifice with these three words, he is acting in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a scientific execution of transcendental activities which enables one to return home back to Godhead. There is no loss of energy in acting in such a transcendental way. This is a very brilliant purport by Srila Prabhupada. And we'll delve into certain aspects of it. But just to set the scene and the context, we are now moving into the final section of this chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And the link between this section and the previous section is that up to this point, Krishna has been describing how one can recognize the modes of material nature under which a person exists by the person's worship, food, austerity, sacrifice, and charity. All three modes and their combinations are defective and bind one to the material world. Now, Krishna will explain that all defects can be removed from every combination of the modes of material nature. How? By chanting Om Tat Sat. So Prabhupada actually explains all of this very beautifully in the first paragraph. Prabhupada says, he talks about first class, second class, or third class. One can be in a first class prison cell, a second class prison cell, or a third class prison cell. But one is still in the prison. So one can be in the mode of ignorance, one can be in the mode of passion, or one can be in the mode of goodness. But as Prabhupada say here, they are all still contaminated. Because as long as we are under the modes of material nature, we remain in the material world. So Krishna, the Lord, and his pure devotees, they do not like to see the living entities in this material world and remaining in this material world, either by eating or charity or sacrifice. The Lord doesn't want to see that. The Lord wants all living entities to come to the point of transcendence. Transcend, the word transcendence comes from the word transcend. Transcend means to go beyond. So to go beyond what? To go beyond the modes of material nature. So how, in these different activities of penance, charity, and austerity, how does a person who is still functioning within the modes of nature, how do they transcend it? And Prabhupada explains here, when you now direct any of these activities towards the Supreme, that shifts the activity from one of being within the modes to one in transcendence. So how do you shift the activity? Dedicate the activity to the Supreme Lord? You do it by uttering these three words, Om Tat Sat. As Prabhupada says here, Om Tat Sat means now you are shifting your consciousness towards the Supreme, directing it towards the Supreme Lord. And the moment we do that, we move towards the transcendental path. So this is the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is saying in the first paragraph here. No matter what situation one is in, whatever mode one is in, by chanting Om Tat Sat, one will become elevated. Prabhupada says here that they become the means for spiritual elevation. And Prabhupada goes on to say that at least they should be done in the mode of goodness, at least. And by uttering Om Tat Sat, that lifts it. And then Prabhupada says something interesting, and I'll elaborate a bit more on that. But does everyone understand this particular aspect of what's being said in this verse here? And in the verse, Krishna is saying, this is not something new he's speaking now in this Bhagavad Gita. This process of chanting Om Tat Sat, this has been there from the beginning of creation. Beginning of creation means Lord Brahma. Because at the beginning of creation, there was only one living entity, and that was Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, he's the first living entity. He's the father, so to speak, of all the living entities. He also practiced this. That whatever he did, he introduced Om Tat Sat, because that is the means for purifying everything we do. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain a bit more about these three words, Om, Tat, and Sat. So I don't want to, in today's session, go particularly deep in Om Tat Sat, because in text number 24, there is focus on Om. And text number 25, there is focus on Tat. And in text number 26, there is focus on Sat. So we can dive a bit more deeper in those verses on these particular words. But there's some interesting things Prabhupada says here. Prabhupada says, statements Prabhupada makes. He says, the three words Om Tat Sat are uttered in conjunction with the holy name of the Supreme Lord. So what does Srila Prabhupada mean here? Srila Prabhupada is now introducing another concept. Prabhupada is saying this Om Tat Sat is it is uttered in conjunction with something else. It's interesting if you read Srila Prabhupada's preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's preface to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In both prefaces, Srila Prabhupada ends with the words Om Tat Sat. If you go and read the preface for both books, you'll see. And there are even letters that Srila Prabhupada wrote, especially when he wrote letters to cultured Brahmanical Indian people. He ended these letters with the words Om Tat Sat. Now, this statement that the words Om Tat Sat are uttered in conjunction with the holy name of the Lord. You will notice that in the Vaishnav culture, there are very prominent mantras. And as Prabhupada is explaining here, that this Om Tat Sat, it is a way of addressing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just to give you a simple example. Say, suppose we want to address Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. Some people will address him as the Prime Minister. And other people will address him as Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So the impersonalists, their way of addressing the Supreme Lord is like only focusing on Prime Minister. Therefore, the impersonalists, they will focus on Om. Whereas the Vaishnavas, they will say Om Narayan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the Vaishnavas, they use Om in conjunction with a more intimate address to the Lord. The impersonalists, they cannot come to terms with the personality aspect of the Lord. Although, as Prabhupada says here, Om Tat Sat is actually addressing the personality of Godhead. We know the Absolute is understood in three features. What are the three features we understand the Absolute? Can anyone say?
Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavanti, Shabdate.
Yes. Can you explain to Palika Mataji in English now for the others' benefit?
Brahmeti is like an impersonal aspect of Sri Krishna.
Yes.
And Paramatma is the super soul who is living in our heart.
Yes.
And Bhagavan is Supreme Personality of God, is Sri Krishna himself.
Yes. Yes. So there are three features of the Absolute Truth. Om Tat Sat actually addresses the personality feature of the Lord, just like Narendra Modi, his Prime Minister is a person. Prime Minister, we call him Prime Minister. We know he's a person. So the same way is like Om. But when you add the personal names, it becomes like Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Others who do not have much information or more personal contact with the Lord, they stop at maybe Om. So this addressing of the Lord by introducing, or anything we do, Om Tat Sat, it elevates the practitioner. It elevates the practitioner. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 8th canto, 23rd chapter, 16th verse, there is a very beautiful verse, one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavatam. Mantratas tantratas tidram, deshe kalaha, vashtutha, sarvam karoti nischidra, anusankirtanam tava. The translation of this verse is, there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulative principles. And moreover, there may be discrepancies in regards to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. But when your Lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes perfect. So this beautiful verse is explaining that in any activity, there are so many imperfections. There's imperfections in pronouncing. There's imperfection in the principles. There's imperfection in terms of time. There's imperfections in respect to place. There's imperfection with regards to persons and paraphernalia. We do not have, like when Srila Prabhupada first went to America, he wanted to do the initiation ceremony. And normally you do the yagya, fire yagya, during the initiation ceremony. And you need to have ghee. They didn't even have ghee, all they had was some margarine. Paraphernalia was not. The devotees who were chanting the mantras, they didn't even know what they were saying. They didn't even know the syllables. And there were so many discrepancies, If a Paka Vedic Brahmana was to come back, he would just say, oh, this is just completely off. But Srila Prabhupada, at the end of every ceremony, he would say, now let's start kirtan. Now let's start kirtan. And by the process of anusankirtanam, everything becomes perfect. As this verse says, everything becomes faultless. So sometimes people ask this, what's the difference between like the chanting of Om and the chanting of Hare Krishna? In one sense, you could look at it like concentric circles, with each circle representing the different gradations of human beings. This verse is saying the Om Tat Sat being chanted by the Brahmanas. Generally, it's the Brahmanas, they can chant Om Tat Sat, and they would be elevated to the position of transcendence. Those in the mode of ignorance and passion, by chanting, they'll be lifted into the mode of goodness. But the chanting of Hare Krishna is so powerful, it can take someone even from the mode of ignorance straight to the path of transcendence. Someone from the mode of passion straight to the path of transcendence. Whereas Om Tat Sat, generally, it's most uplifting for the Brahmanas in the mode of goodness. Certainly it uplifts those in the mode of, as Krishna is saying in this verse, anything you do in your charity, your sacrifice, you chant Om Tat Sat. They'll be uplifted. But the chanting of Hare Krishna, it's so powerful, it'll take anybody in any position, in any place, immediately to the point of transcendence. So it's 8:30 now. there's other aspects of the verse. Let me see any other points. As I said, we'll focus a bit more on Om, Tat, and Sat on the other verses. But the essence of this is Krishna is giving a wonderful means of elevation to those who may not be so fortunate to be in contact with the scriptures. So I'll stop here. I'll see if there's any questions, comments, reflections, or corrections that anyone may have.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I just have a question. So when you do some performance, like charity or so, we have to say it's like Om Tat Sat, and so it will go to the Krishna. It's like that.
Well, it's more, there's two things, like the parrot. You can teach the parrot to say Hare Krishna. You can also teach the parrot to say Om Tat Sat, maybe. But the parrot will just repeat the words. Where someone will say Om Tat Sat, now I'm directing this to the Supreme. So two things have to be there. Not only Om Tat Sat, but the recognition that now you are directing this to the Supreme. Then there's elevation.
So it's like your bow as well. Like when you do.
Yeah, yes, the mood, the consciousness, Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments? Does it make sense, this verse? And the purport?
Yes, very nice.
Okay, good. Any comments, questions, reflections? Nice to have some reflections.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I mean, we don't really normally hear people using Om Tat Sat. I know you said, Prabhupada, that
Yes.
in our ISKCON programs and everything, we only do Hare Krishna. I don't remember any kind of the temple program where we say Om Tat Sat.
They do sometimes. You see, they do this. The yagya. They'll say Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. But not so much in the normal programs, because we all know and we understand that Krishna, all these instructions that he's spoken on the Bhagavad Gita, he came to personally teach how all of these instructions should be executed. And when he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he indicated, yes, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that's perfect. But you see, Mataji, the point being made here is that there are quite a few people, and this is catering for a certain class of people. They have no inclination to chant Hare Krishna. And neither do they have an inclination to read and study the scriptures. So for such class of people, Om Tat Sat is being specifically recommended here by the Lord. The devotees, the Vaishnavas, they recognize that Om Tat Sat is addressing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they will use it also, as Srila Prabhupada uses it in his preface to both the Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. But because we have the Mahamantra, more emphasis you will find among the Vaishnavas, especially the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, on the Mahamantra. It's not to say that they find Om Tat Sat lower. As I was explaining earlier, you can call the person Prime Minister, or you can call him Prime Minister Narendra Modi, or you can just call him Narendra Modi if you're more familiar to him. You can leave out the Prime Minister. So the devotees, they can say straight Hare Krishna, and they won't say Om. But they can also, and they may also. Does that make sense to you, Mataji?
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna, Rupa Mataji, Dandavat Pranams.
Wonderful, wonderful class again. I was just thinking that, every day when we read the Bhagavad Gita recitation, when we do the recitation, in the end it says Om Tat Sat Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishad Su, and it ends like that. So there I have heard Om Tat Sat written.
Yes, nice point. Very nice point. Yes.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. And also, I don't know if it is true or not, but when I was in India, we used to know Om as a beginning, middle, and end, because when we open our mouth, the first sound that comes is a, and then when we close our mouth, so that's the start, and then in the middle, it sounds like you're trying to close your mouth, and then you close your mouth, and it's So Om, like beginning, middle, and end. So that's what I heard.
Yes, that's true. In a Vaishnav culture, and we will discuss maybe more tomorrow, it's A-U-M, Om. It says A is Krishna, U is Radharani, and M is the Jiva. That's how Srila Jiva Goswami has explained that. But yes, that's very nice what you've said. Even we say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. So we say that in Prabhupada's Pranam mantra, one who is very dear to the Lord, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. So we use the syllable Om quite often.
Yeah, we use in Om Agyana Trimirandhasya Gyananjana. So we use Om quite a lot in many prayers.
Yeah, it's transcendental, and it is also addressing the absolute in the personal form.
Yes, impersonal. Yeah, impersonal form. Absolute truth is Om.
Yeah, Prabhupada is saying in this purport, this Om Tat Sat is addressing the personality of Godhead. Although sometimes some people say Om is addressing the impersonal. In this purport, Prabhupada is saying, no, the Om Tat Sat is addressing the personality of Godhead.
Yes. Is it like, obviously we'll discuss it in the next verses, but Sat Chit Ananda. So Sat is the eternal.
If you look at the word for word that Prabhupada has given here in this verse here, you will see you'll see here he says Sat is eternal.
Yes.
Sat, yeah. But there are Sat can mean a few things, but we will discuss that probably in verse 27, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, and also I think in some other school of thought, I don't know if it's impersonalism or something, there is a saying called Tat Tvam Asi. So again, I think Tat means you. So Om Tat Sat means, that's why it's a personal form, because Tat means I think you. I don't know. Tat Tvam Asi. I've heard this phrase as well. Tat Tvam Asi.
Yes. I was going to discuss. Yes, Mataji, that's correct. Tattvamasi, Prabhupada actually talks about in the purport. It actually means Tattvamasi means your identity.
Oh, okay.
And Prabhupada says the impersonalists think that their identity is that they are God. And the Vaishnavas, for them, Tattvamasi means I am servant of Krishna.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you very much.
We'll discuss that maybe in another verse.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sorry, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu. I'm mixing it up because I'm seeing Vrindavan Navadip Chandra Prabhu in my Bhagavatam class, and both are Chandras. I'm sorry for this. Now, I just mentioned when we do our Achmana, we do use this, the Om Tat Sat at the end. Yeah.
Even Tilak, Om Keshavaya
Namaha,
Om Narayana. But no, Achaman, and then also when we say we put our tilak in the body, on our body.
Yeah.
We also say Om before we say the name of the Lord.
Yes.
Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Vishnave Namaha, Om Madhusudanaya Namaha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Yes. Yes, also.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
So therefore Prabhupada says, with the Vaishnavas, we use it in conjunction with the more personal, specific name of the Lord.
Also, like Shiva, also they say Om Namo Shivaya. So,
Yeah.
Even Om means Vishnu, isn't it, Prabhuji? Om is Vishnu.
Yes, personality. Om is the personality of God. Omkara.
Yeah.
So
We used to say Om Tat Sat Guru Dev Namaha.
Yes. And Mataji, when you used to say that, who were you addressing?
My dad and family. On every Thursdays, we used to sit in the evening and pray and do bhajans. And that's we used to start off with Om Tat Sat Guru Dev Namaha, and we used to finish with that as well.
Yes. Yes. There's some slight distinction. You know, some people. Anyway, we can discuss it some other time. You know, the impersonalists, they equate everyone with God. But when the Vaishnavas say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, they understand that the Guru is the representative of God. He's not God. Some slight differences in different traditions. They use
right, okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes, slight differences.
Even when people go into meditation, they start with the Omkara, don't they?
Yes. Yes.
That's right.
Om is you're addressing the Lord.
In yoga, in meditation, everything, yeah.
Yeah. Geta says, Srila Prabhupada also used Om Tat Sat at the end forward to Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, Geta, we are mentioning that. Not only Bhagavatam, but also Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Oh, could it be we used to pray to Jalaram Bapu and Sai Baba? Could it be because of that? Om Guru Dev Namaha.
I don't understand the question. Can you elaborate, Mataji?
As I mentioned before, we used to pray on Thursdays.
Yes.
But we used to pray to Sai Baba and Jalaram Bapu on Thursday.
Yeah. Well, according to this verse by the Lord, Om Tat Sat is addressing the Supreme Personality of God, the absolute truth.
Okay.
So when you're using Om for some other living entities, one has to be a little more conscious of the context of how you're using that. In the Vaishnava tradition, we use it for the spiritual master. Like we say, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa, because they are the representative of Krishna. So if you're seeing those personalities as the representative of the Lord, as Guru, and not as some God, then that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Prabhuji, I know some people who use Om Tat Sat as like you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They chant like that. Is that also? Is it for the impersonal devotees? Is it?
Om Tat Sat, it could be either. Some people like the Mayavadis, they focus only on Om because they only focus on the impersonalist. But some people, like, again, I go back to my example, is Prime Minister and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But when you say Prime Minister, without saying his name Narendra Modi, which is more personal, you're still addressing a person. So people can chant Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, and they can be thinking of the Lord, but maybe not in such an intimate way. Or they could be Mayavadis or Brahmavadis. Again, I won't get into the technicalities, but they're only focusing on the impersonal. Both can be there. Both can be there. It depends. We have to understand their consciousness. It's difficult to make a judgment or a generic, a specific statement unless we understand their consciousness. we really need to understand their consciousness. Does that make sense, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Satyananda here.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, obeisances.
Obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah,
Okay.
this is about Arjuna asked question to Krishna. What happened to people who worship God but not believing in scriptures? So I suddenly remember Srila Prabhupada teaching books are the basis. So books are scriptures, aren't they?
Yes.
And not only that, Prabhupada says so, and we can see the effect of his books, of the scriptures.
Yes.
In Krishna's name.
Yes.
And also, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, who chants my, who glorify me or who chants my name, they are my devotees.
Yes.
But who spread my glories, they are even higher than the.
True. Very true, Prabhu. Thank you.
So I thought I just share my realization, this taking these examples.
That's a very wonderful realization. Thank you for sharing it with us, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Mataji. Fine.
Vishalini Mataji, you go, and
Very
then
well.
Chandrika Mataji will come
Okay.
after you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Have you heard about when we do Tulsi prayers, Tulsi Nama, Pranam, Om Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya? Have you heard that? Because I heard it once only, and I thought before I've never heard it, but only once I heard it. And in Vrindavan, we just say Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya. But there was this one person from Mayapur who said, it actually does say Om in that book, in the Om book. It does say Om.
Does it say Om, you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just, that was just a query that, can we use that as Om Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya, or just, because I've never heard it before.
Yeah.
We only do Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya.
Yeah, we just say Vrindaya Tulasi Devaya, Priyaya Keshavasya. I don't know. I need to check up what is in our books, but in our song book it's just Vrindaya Tulasi Devaya.
Yeah, in song book it is. I'm just looking in one of my books I've seen. If I can.
So your question is, with this Prabhu says Om Tulasi Devaya,
Yeah.
whether that's correct or not?
Yes. Because none of us had heard, and we all were a bit mesmerized when he said Om, and that's when I thought Om was more for the Supreme Personality of Godhead rather than.
Well, there's two aspects of it, Mataji. The first aspect is, as Prabhupada is saying in the purport, and it's being explained here, in anything we do, if we say Om first, it means we're recognizing the Supreme Lord.
Yes.
So if a devotee is saying Om, it could be he's first offering respects to Vishnu, and then he's saying the Tulsi Pranam, then he's saying the Tulsi Pranam mantras.
Okay.
It could be that. And again, it's all on the consciousness. But, as Prabhupada is saying, Om is uttered in any activity first, because it recognizes the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead first.
That's true.
So it depends how we are understanding it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So in anything you do, if you say Om first, means you're thinking of the Supreme Lord first, and then everything else follows after.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Chandrika Mataji, you had a question or a comment?
No, I was just reflecting, Prabhu, that you mentioned about the three modes and how there's three prison houses, first, second class, and third class. And I just really like that analogy because, yes, all three still keeps us in the prison of material world, and the only way out is to be engaging ourselves in the devotional service. So I just was reflecting that example was really good. I'll use it. Yeah.
That's brilliant what Prabhupada says, isn't it? Sometimes the people in the mode of goodness, they become very comfortable in the material world. They're living a peaceful life. They're reading nice philosophy. They're eating pure food. But they're still in the first class prison cell. They're still in the material world, you know. So that's, Prabhupada is so brilliant in how he explains things. All right, we've gone quite a bit over time.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, could I just end with reflecting on Chandrika Mataji's, what she has just said?
Certainly.
Is that okay to add? So I was reading something on Uddhav when Lord is instructing Uddhav Maharaj, and he's concluding saying that there is no need for a more elaborate description of these good and bad qualities of goodness, passion, since to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality.
That's such a nice thing you say, Mataji, because when Krishna gets towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, what he does he tell Arjuna?
Yeah.
He said, Arjuna, just forget everything I've told you before.
Yes.
Including this chapter 17 and all the modes and everything. Just forget everything else I've told you. And you just focus on one thing. You surrender to me.
Yeah.
That's a lovely reflection, Emma Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.